morning, everybody. My name is Nicole Rogerson. I'm the CEO of Autism Awareness Australia, and thank you very much for joining us for our November Ought to Know. Ought to Know is a webinar series, so we do this once a month. Everybody joining here this morning is joining the early years webinar. So we're specifically in this series for this month is talking about very little people with autism. So hopefully we've got lots of new parents that are joining us today on this webinar. I really want to first kick off by saying thank you very much to our sponsor, Leap In. This webinar series wouldn't happen without them, so we're really grateful. Leap In is Australia's leading NDIS plan manager, supporting thousands of Australians across the country, helping them to get the most out of their NDIS package. And I think everybody can agree that's a good thing. All right, without further ado, let me introduce Claire Birrell, who is joining us today. Now, Claire, your bio here says you have over 18 years experience in early intervention. You don't look old enough, but I won't call you out in a lie. But you lead the early intervention program at Learning for Life, which is a Melbourne-based non-for-profit providing evidence-based neuroaffirming early intervention and inclusion support for autistic kids and supporting their families. Claire, you're supporting families from their very earliest part in their journey, which is why Learning to Life pointed you out. Learning for Life have been a long-time friend of Autism Awareness Australia. You're a board-certified behaviour analyst and an NDIS registered behaviour support practitioner. So welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Thank you for joining us and taking time away from the very little people that are in your service.
Of course.
So many families, I'm assuming, that are joining today are probably pretty new to autism and certainly pretty new to early intervention. And possibly their child has just received an autism diagnosis or is just about to receive an autism diagnosis. What do you say to parents in those early days?
I think there are two main things that I say. One is that it's okay to feel however you feel. There can be judgment around that and some loud voices, but it's an adjustment. You know, you may have pictured a certain life raising your child, and now maybe it looks a little bit different. So please be kind to yourself and just give yourself time to adjust in whatever way you need to. And the second thing is that the diagnosis doesn't change who your child is. They're still the same child that they were before they got diagnosed. The diagnosis is just going to help you better understand them and to help other people better understand them, and to help you advocate for them and to hopefully help get some funding to get supports for them as well. So those are kind of my two main bits of advice.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, is no one should tell you how to feel, and it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, right? It's not going to, yeah, it is difficult. Now, early intervention is a word, some people don't like it at all anymore. I mean, it rolls off the tongue for me because I've been involved in early intervention for most of my career. So does it matter what we call it? I mean, it's a term parents are going to hear whether you like it or not.
Yeah, look, I can see why some people might not like it. I guess if you're intervening, there could be a negative connotation to that. I think though, if you look at what good early intervention is, I think the label again doesn't matter. Early intervention is just about coming in and helping build the best possible outcome that you can for your child, whatever that looks like for them. So it's about helping them. It's about setting them up for their well-being. It's about making sure that they're able to participate in their community, that they can communicate and tell people what they want and what they think and what they need and all those sorts of things. It's about building connections. And the reason that early intervention is so important in particular is because little people's brains are very malleable. They have lots of neural pathways that are developing, and so it's the time to really try to strengthen those neural pathways, which will set them up for success in their older years. So
yeah, that's a great point when you say, actually, it's not, if you're worrying about the language and the words, you're kind of missing the point, right? It's the early part that is the most important part of that saying, which is the earlier we can get in and support these little ones, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
that's right.
I don't know, but for me as a parent, I always found that was really reinforcing. I wasn't like, that didn't bother me. It just felt really good. Like, oh, you mean we can do stuff? Excellent. Let's do stuff to help this little one.
Absolutely. Of course we can do stuff. I actually just had a family start recently who have a 17-month-old child. That's
Wow.
still a baby, like that's a very little person. And then because I do all the new families coming through our centre, I do all of that intake. So I'm meeting them all at the start, which is one of my favourite parts of my job,
Yeah, yeah,
actually, that
yeah.
I get to do that. But what the sort of early intervention for a 17-month-old will look miles different to what we're doing with a 4-year-old or a child getting ready for school. When we're looking at a 17-month-old, where it's all about supporting the parents to be able to look for those moments of connection and how to really shape those moments. And there's no it's an hour, it's an hour a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
It's solo. It's all very gentle. It's all play based. The child's in their parents' lap for the majority of the time. So it's all good. Early intervention should be completely adapted to whatever the child needs and their family needs. And it won't be harmful, no matter when you're doing it. And even if they don't even have a diagnosis yet, but they have a suspected diagnosis, if that little 17-month-old really just thrives, maybe we'll be out of there in 6 months, or
Yeah.
maybe we'll be around for a decade. And both of those are fine.
It's a really good point, though. And I love the sound of that, is that it doesn't really matter how old the child is between 0 and 6. You guys are going to look at the individual child and work out what they need at that age. So there's no sort of what does a child need at 1 versus 2 versus 3. It's the child in front of you, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They're running their own race. And
And
each child, it'll be different also depending on their community and the context that they live in. It will be dependent on if they're spending most of their time at daycare. We have lots of more and more full-time working parents now. So we're doing more sessions in daycare, or maybe we're at home, or maybe it's a child who is just struggling with a couple of little areas around social skills and daily living skills. And then we have other kids who need support across many more areas. So there's an infinite number of factors that will determine what early intervention will look like for any given child and their family.
yeah, but I love it. You're really saying we can be quite flexible here.
Yes.
There's no one size fits all, because that was going to be my next point is parents can feel really overwhelmed by this. And
Mm.
you alluded to something then that I think is really relevant is, for the most part in modern day Australia, both parents are having to work.
Yeah.
So there isn't heaps of time and resources just lying around to work out how to pull all this together. Um,
Yeah.
when parents feel overwhelmed by early intervention, how do you best support them to get through that? Because
Yeah.
being overwhelmed is a feeling, but it doesn't give us an outcome.
Yes, I think that there's so much information out there, and especially now there's social media and there's websites and there's every person you come across on the street, your hairdresser, everyone is going to know someone with autism and have an opinion about what is a good thing to do. So I think my advice is just to pick a couple of trusted sources. Pick your sister, your mum, your friend who's got a child with autism who's been in the journey for quite a long time. If you don't have those things, there are some, reach out to AAA or out to you guys, and maybe there are parent groups that they could put you in touch with to join. Like find a couple of people to talk to, a pediatrician that you trust. There's Raising Children's Network, which I really like a lot, because that shows you like the evidence base, the cost, what all the different interventions look like and what they are. So I think just pick a couple of places and then try if you can to filter everything else out. And also it's a journey, not a race. So if you feel overwhelmed, you can take a break. It's not the end of the world if you wait a few weeks most of the time, so it's okay to take a breather and just give yourself a minute before you decide what to do.
I think it's fair to say make sure one of those people is not the president of the United States, where you get your autism advice from. But also, I'm sort of saying that as a jest, but sort of serious, which is
Yes.
online is great, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
problematic
Yeah.
because, I was saying to somebody recently who was talking about the benefits of peer support online, and I said,
Mm.
Well, that's all and well and good until you get a parent who might be have really strong views on anti-vaccination or something really anti-science, or people who
Yeah.
don't understand why we choose evidence-based therapies, that some
Yeah.
people don't understand the importance of what an evidence base does to the interventions we're giving.
Mm.
Is that sort of something you try and guide parents to?
Definitely. I think evidence-based, there are so many like quick fixes out there that have been, I've had many families who have come and said, oh, we've bought an oxygen chamber that we're putting in our living room, or we're going on to this diet, or we're having this magic pill, or we're getting all of the metal out of their bloodstream because I read it. And I don't judge those parents wanting to do absolutely everything they can to support their family, to support their child. Um, However, if it's evidence based, if it's got a strong evidence base, then you know that it's actually been successful for many, many, many other children, rather than just taking the word of one, convincing looking website. So,
And they've been around for years. And by the way, for a lot of those shoddy kind of therapies, I will let you all know they were around when my child was young,
yeah,
and he's now quite an adult.
yeah,
And those things linger. They have never produced evidence to show them. Like, I'm all for if something new and emerging is worth us having a little look at. But for some of these things, they've been shoddy for a really long time. So
yeah,
parents have to be good consumers, right? And organizations like ours want to help in trying to point people in the right direction. Not just us, but other sensible people around the country who, we don't have non-evidence-based medicine. You don't go to the GP and say, give me some of that stuff you just read off the website.
yes, that's absolutely it. And just in terms of the diet, I was just thinking, if a GP tells you or a pediatrician tells you that that's required, then please absolutely do that. It's just yeah, talk to someone who has qualifications, or someone that's got experience.
Expertise kind of matters. Yeah, I
It
kind of tend to
really
feel that
matters.
way too as well. All right. So when they're looking for an early intervention service, so I remember years ago, somebody was talking about how do you find an early intervention center, and somebody wanted to pull together a directory, like an A to Z directory. And I remember thinking,
Mm.
well, how does that help families? It's not like AAA early intervention is going to be any better than AAA plumbing. What do parents have to look out for? How do they find a good quality early intervention provider so that they know that they're not going to waste not only the time and money. Time, I think, is as much a problem as wasting your NDIS funds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think looking for people who that show that they've been around for a little while. I think if they're brand new, they might be great, but you're not going to know that. So looking for someone that's been around for a while, looking for someone who's got values that you share, that show somewhere that they're evidence based. Um, Most of our clients come to us through word of mouth. So if you actually do have someone you're like, I trust you, you look like you've been on a good journey, talk to them for sure. Um, Sometime, and you guys have, there's the What's Next website that you
Hey,
guys
I
have
didn't even
as well.
ask
I
you
think
to
that's,
do that cross promotion.
yeah,
Thank you
I
so
know.
much.
Well, no, I think an excellent resource to go and have a look at, because that's going to help give you options that suit your circumstances.
Yeah, great point. And I will, since you've shamelessly called it out, I'll shamelessly plug it. But for those families who are new,
Yeah,
who
good.
don't know, we have a resource called Autism What Next. So you can just go to autismwhatnext.com.au. And that it's actually, we co-designed it with both parents and autistic adults because depending on when you're getting that diagnosis, it looks really different for people who are being diagnosed as an adult than it does for families of little kids. So it's worthwhile going and having a look at that resource. It's got lots of information there. But that's the point of that resource, is because this is a really overwhelming time, and how do parents manage it? Okay, so coming back,
Mm,
what role do parents play? Because they're going to feel a fair bit of stress and a fair bit of, oh my God, this is on me. And we don't want parents to buckle under that stress. But
yeah.
likewise, this is it's a verb. We're going to be doing stuff. What role
Yeah.
do you see parents playing, and how do they juggle that with juggling work and other kids?
Yeah, I think that the parents' number one role obviously is their child's well-being and safety, and the well-being and safety of their family. So that's the most important thing. But then when you're going into early intervention, I think that the parent provides a really important role in terms of just consistency and collaboration, and really trying to support and promote that. So if you've got multiple people working with your child, perhaps you have a speech pathologist and an OT, and you've got your kinder educators or whoever it might be. Really trying to make sure that they're all talking to each other, because otherwise what's going to happen is that they're all going to be telling you things, and then that might be really overwhelming, because if they're not talking to each other, that's going to be difficult for you to know what it is that you're supposed to do, because that, you shouldn't have to ever be the therapist. That's, if a clinician ever gives you a massive list of things that you need to be trying to fit into your day, they're probably not the right one for you necessarily. But if they can give you just a couple of practical things that you can easily fit into your everyday routines, then that's really good. And when we have parents who are involved in that way, and we can come together and really understand, okay, as a clinician, I'm not going to overload you, but as a parent, like, let's all get on board here and try to work together to help this little person. So yes, in summary, collaboration.
No. I get you, because I was actually talking to a clinician. They're about some researchers are about to release some new research in this area. And they said actually they found, in comparison to the parents that were getting support, that were being given strategies of what to do, as opposed to the control group who weren't, the parents who were actually being given some structure of what to do with their child actually reported feeling a lot more supported. I don't find this a shock. I mean, I think this is a
Yeah.
obvious, but
Yes.
for some people, they think, oh, you just can't give any more work to a parent to do. But if a parent's feeling pretty lost, isn't giving them some strategies of what to do going to be more helpful?
Definitely. Because when we parent, we learn how to parent from our own experience, from how our parents parented, from our friends, from our family, from whatever, from TV shows, from doing things that our parents did not do, whatever it might be.
Yes.
If you did not grow up in a household with an autistic child, how are you supposed to know how to do that? No, you're the expert on that child, and no one should ever tell you otherwise. But you're not supposed to know how to interpret these behaviors or big feelings that just don't resonate in the context of your upbringing. So having someone come in and just take a little bit of the weight off your shoulders and say, let's do this together. I can help you. That's what our families find that helpful as well. Absolutely.
You reminded me of a mum who I remember, her autistic child was her fourth child. And
Mhm.
she said, this is not my first rodeo. I know how to parent. I just don't know how to parent him.
Yeah.
And it was a really honest moment of just saying, I'm not trying to get this wrong. I just need
Yeah.
help in how to do this so that it works for them. So
Mm.
I love that idea of giving that parent that input. Give me some practical ideas of what that actually looks like, how you weave that into your week. How
Yeah.
how might parent one and parent two be able to do that?
So I think often when we're doing that at Learning for Life, we'll pick just a couple of skills that we think the parents could be successful with as well. It's about setting everyone up for success, the parents and the child. So it might be, if we're working on teaching a child how to ask for more of something, for instance, and we're teaching them to say more, and they've started to get it in sessions at that point, not right at the start before they don't know how to do it, but when they've started to demonstrate it a little bit, we might say to the parents, okay, so when they're reaching for something, when they're pointing to something, when they're pulling you or whatever it might be, if you've given them a cookie and they're like screaming for more, reaching for more, I want you to model more. And if everyone does it, they're going to learn it a whole bunch faster. So just like a couple of little things. Or it might be, if we're working on colors with a child and we're working on the color red, just asking them to point out red in their everyday life. Oh, red fire truck, red bin,
Yeah,
red,
it's
red.
wonderful.
Just pointing it out, and just things. They should be things that can be. Everyone's busy, right? Everyone's busy. People have multiple children, multiple responsibilities. They're on school fundraising. People are busy, So
Yeah.
it can't be. We would never ask a parent to be calling their child to come over and do a 15-minute session of a particular worksheet or something at home. Like, it's just not going to happen, and then the parents are going to feel like failures, and it's just not going to work. So
Well,
a couple of
but the other flip side is, if you're really embedded in that natural learning in the environment the child's in, I don't know what from my experience was as a parent, every time he would get something and learn a new skill, I was so reinforced.
Yes.
I was like, this is exciting. This kid is learning. This is something he
Yes.
didn't know before. He does know today. What's
Yeah.
next? And then
Yes.
that's the fun part. What's next? What's next?
Absolutely. It's so exciting when you see like a little girl that we're working with at the moment. When I met her, she didn't have any vocal language as well. And she, within a couple of weeks, has started to say bubble, which are her favorite things. And it's just every time I hear a story like that, I'm just, beside myself because it's so exciting. You can just see this child's world starting to open up for them. And the
Seriously,
more
working.
consistent we can be, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, people, you just remind me so much of people who work in early intervention. You're just like perpetually
Oh,
happy, but it is
oh.
pretty fun working with little kids who are learning new skills.
It is. It's so exciting. Well, and I'm not doing it as I'm not on the ground as quite as much anymore doing it. But that's why I love those meeting new families because I do get to be a clown in
Yeah,
those
yeah.
moments. But the more consistent we can be for these kids, the faster they're going to learn, the easier it's going to be for them. If some people are expecting one thing and other people are expecting something else, that's going to be confusing. So we need to the goal areas that we pick, consistency is just so important.
So I guess a point for, a parent who might be a single parent who's tuning
Mm-hmm.
in today. This
Mm-hmm.
this is not a job that necessarily requires two parents, but you do need to build a team, right? It's helpful, and that's not necessarily a paid team. That could be grandma, grandpa, aunties, uncles. It just doesn't have to be. You're not completely alone if you're a single parent. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yes, a team of people that you trust. Also, if you're a single parent, make sure you mention that when you're doing your NDIS funding because you can sometimes get it. Like that's good for them to know, just as a little aside, that you're a single parent, so have less time to try to manage everything yourself. But yes, get a team. Absolutely. See if you can find a trusted babysitter, someone that you've got as a backup if you don't have any family around. Even Orange Door are a service who offer are a service who offer support for some families, and they even have an emergency babysitting service in there. But yes, in general, surround yourself with a team that you trust, who understand the limitations of your time, the pressures that you're feeling, and who will look at this precious little child in your family as in a holistic way and not just I'm here to do this one thing. Make sure you do it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Love it. Now, what are some misconceptions that you would like to dispel about early intervention? Because, I see some wacky things online.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah.
get offline, by the way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but what are some of the misconceptions that you'd love to clear up?
Yeah, I think the thing that's difficult, and I talk and I think about this a lot, is that there are misconceptions about early intervention, which I'll get to in a sec, but also some of the criticism that's out there is valid because there are some service providers, unfortunately, who aren't doing a good job either. So we've got to use our critical thinking when we're thinking about it. And I don't want to defend every single early intervention provider, but a good early intervention provider. Some of the criticism that I hear is that we're trying to turn them into a neurotypical little person, that we're trying to work the autism out of them, that we're trying to mold them to just be something that they're not, little robots. I've heard that we should just let them live life the way that they want to. And so to that, I say, what good early intervention should really be about opening doors for this child. So, it's about if a teacher tells me, Johnny is spending all of lunchtime walking laps around the oval. We need to teach him how to play with other kids. One of the first things that I'll think about is, well, does Johnny want to play with other kids? Is he not playing with other kids because he doesn't know how to or because he doesn't want to? If he needs that time as a break, then I'll advocate for Johnny to have that time as a break. If he wants to play with other kids, I'm going to teach him how to play with other kids. And so good early intervention should be about working on skills that are socially valid for that child, that are meaningful for them. So usually
Give them
whenever someone has
opportunity.
got negative views about what we're doing, once they hear about what we're actually doing, they'll come around and be like, oh yeah, we do that at kinder. We're doing that at home anyway. Like it's all just, teaching and giving opportunities.
Well, and my view is if we don't teach, we actually limit that child's life. If that child can't be included in lots of different settings because they don't have skills,
That's right.
by all means, teach a child skills, and then if they don't want to use them, they don't have to.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But they've
Yeah.
got the choice.
And there are some things that kids just have to do as well. Kids like the neurotypical kids aren't allowed to just do what they want all the time. And so we have to be sensitive to differences in the way that an autistic child is experiencing the world and sensory, you know, being hyper or hypo sensitive to sensory input, all those sorts of things. Yes, we have to take that into account. I'm never going to force a child to just sit at the mat if all the kids are being really loud and that's, they want to rip their ears out. Never do that. But in general, sometimes kids just have to do things that they don't want to do. So just because a child is autistic doesn't mean that they should get to watch screens for 13 hours of the day if none of the other kids in the house get to watch screens for 13 hours of the day. So it's about balance.
Yeah. So, all right. Uh, in summing up, when you have a new family that comes to the Learning for Life office and they sit down with you and they're all overwhelmed and you've explained to them what the program's going to be like and how do you leave them? What feeling do you leave families with about what's about to occur during those early intervention years?
I try to leave them feeling hopeful and less alone than they did when they came in, that we're a team, and to help them to trust in their child's potential. And that's what it's all about. And I think a lot of the time they do. But yeah.
I know they do. So
Yeah. Well, if they call us back and want to go ahead, I know they do. So
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well, Claire, thank you so much for coming on this morning and talking to us about early intervention. You have done an excellent job of shaping it up, and I hope for a lot of new families who are feeling overwhelmed, they feel a lot less overwhelmed. This is a really exciting part of your child's life and those learning years. And I actually, as a note, I'd say to parents is take down some notes because you will forget. It's lovely remembering some of the excellent ways your children learn, and when they get much older, you'll love looking back at that. But thank you so
Absolutely.
much for coming to talk to us about early intervention this morning, Claire.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, I just want everybody to know that if you had registered for this, you will receive a recording of this particular video in coming days. But it's also, you can go to our AAA website and that will sort of point you in the direction of where these videos live on YouTube. So you can watch these or at part of our back catalogue if you're new to AAA. Again, I thank Leap In as our sponsor very much for being part of this and enabling these webinars to go together. We really appreciate it. But again, Claire, thank you so much for coming and dispelling some of the myths and telling people how important and great early intervention can be.
Oh, my pleasure. I could talk about this all day.
Me too, I think. Okay, everybody, have a really great day and thanks for tuning in and joining us. Thanks, Claire.
You.